Okay, good morning. Welcome to all of you to this 14th edition of the European Space Conference, placed under the high patronage of the European Parliament and of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of Belgium. This edition, once again, for the second year, has a special format. The speakers are with us here on stage, and the majority of the audience, the huge audience, is with us online. Thank you. Thank you to all of you to be with us. Our online platform will allow us to meet all together. Use it, raise your question, do not hesitate to network online via our platform or via our social media. The hashtag of the conference is BBE-SpaceConf. I'm pleased this morning to be accompanied for this opening by Sophie Wilmès, Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium, by Commissioner for International Market Thierry Breton, and by the Vice President of the European Investment Bank, Mr. Chris Peters. So this conference is placed this year under the French presidency. The French Minister of Economy, Bruno Le Maire, and the French Minister of the Armed Forces, Madame Florence Parly, will join the debate later during this Thursday. Monsieur Le Maire is currently having an audition in the European Parliament, but he will join us just after this opening. So I hope we will have a 2-day of rich debate on the future of European space. Several topics will be addressed during those 2 days. Secure connectivity, strategic autonomy, competitiveness, new space, green and digital transition, defense, cybersecurity, the use of our data, space application, science, innovation. I want to particularly thank the European Space Agency, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the European Council, the national agencies, Eurospace, and of course all the numerous key industrial partners who are supporting this European Space Conference for many years. We have created 40 years ago, and all together, and I'm used to say that we are stronger all together. Madam Wilmès, I want to thank you for your support to this conference by granting us the high patronage of the Kingdom of Belgium. We are back here in the Egmont Palace with the speakers, and this is an important symbol for the Member States, for the policymakers, and for the European Space Agency, for all of us. In your capacity as Minister of Foreign Affairs, you know how space policy is a major challenge, geopolitical and for the security issue. I'm really pleased to give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure to welcome you to the 14th edition of the European Space Conference. The COVID-19 pandemic still enforces us to take necessary sanitary measures in view of our protection, your protection. Nonetheless, online participation did not refrain you from interaction with panelists and keynote speakers, as demonstrated clearly at the previous edition last year. I encourage you to take advantage of all digital means offered by the organization to engage debate on the strategic potential that space has to offer. Next year, I really do hope, to welcome you all in a live setting at the exclusive premises of the Egmont Palace. In this edition of the conference, we look for solutions and answers to strengthen our space industries in a growing competitive and a more globally oriented market. European space companies provide products and services as industry leaders as well as in niche markets. Both ends of this particular but precious ecosystem are fostered by the European Union and the European Space Agency. An example is the European Launchers Alliance, a flagship enterprise that will be discussed later in this conference. Also, Belgium looks for a better link for its space industry to this European ecosystem and the global market. The Belgian space sector represents more than 3,000 full-time jobs and state-of-the-art niche industries such as satellite production, geospatial intelligence, and remote sensing. The Belgian government is confident that our European and international partners are open for cooperation with our promising space industry. A crucial prerequisite for new space is the existence of an operational traffic space management. Companies and authorities need a system of traffic management to conduct space operation in a safe and secure manner. Recently, the leadership of the European Union and ESA have urged for this traffic management on several occasions. On this item, the European Council has elaborated extensively last year. Next month, the European Commission will issue a communication, but more needs to be done. On the technical level, the European Union and ESA already made important efforts in standardization and harmonization. This, lead as an example, should motivate the international community to follow, so that this technical exercise will result in a single accepted regime, as are nowadays the international recognized and complied traffic management standards for the maritime and air transport sectors. A rule-based international order for outer space is still an important work in progress, as reflected in the United Nations Common Agenda, which identifies outer space as a priority. Within the UN, different fora are established in view of this important mission. The Working Group on the Implementation of the Guidelines for Long-Term Sustainability of Space Activities and the Working Group on Space Resources in Vienna, as well as the Working Group on Space Resources, the Working Group on Responsible Behavior in Outer Space in Geneva, to name just a few. Belgium, together with its international partner, is committed to develop necessary norms to address congestion and contestation in outer space, to avoid miscalculation and to mitigate space debris. The Russian-guided anti-satellite test conducted in the low Earth orbit zone on 15 November last year, which was strongly condemned by the international community, illustrate the great need for a rule-based order in outer space as well. The launching of the Jeb Webb Telescope, a joint mission of ESA, the United States and Canada, last December, is to be considered a pivotal moment in outer space exploration. Scientific research and exploration remains a key priority in Belgium's space policy. Our country attaches great importance to a balance shared between scientific research and economic development of space operation. Belgium has a leading participation in European space research missions, such as PROBA mission for the monitoring of ozone layer and the HERA mission regarding space safety. Additionally, Belgium demonstrates a world-class competence in space weather observation. Space systems constitute a vital part of an increasingly digital economy and society. Recently, the European Union adopted a robust cybersecurity policy to make space site systems resilient against hostile operations from criminal or state-sponsored service. In view of implementing this EU policy and in cooperation with ESA, a space operation cybersecurity center will become operational in Redut. My colleague, Thomas Dermine, will elaborate further on the importance of this center and on the essentiality of cybersecurity in a thematic session of this conference later this day. I would like also to insist on the fact that space industry has also an essential role to play in the recovery of the European economy. With the support of the national recovery and resilience plans, we have a real opportunity to boost and transform the space industry for decades ahead. As every year, the program of this conference is dense. The broad range of items offered highlights the multidimensionality of space policy. I therefore wish you a productive debate that will enable us to take another step forwards, achieving our ambition. Before I finish this speech, I just would like to reflect on something that has been said this morning when we had the opportunity to talk in a smaller group with the spatial industry. We were referring to a very well-known motto which says that some countries create, some other countries copy, and other powers legislate. Let's do hope that Europe will be more than legislating in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilmès. We will have Mr. Dermin with us later on the day. We will also have the Prime Minister of Belgium who will join us for the conclusion of this day. Commissioner Breton, we are honored to welcome you today. The online audience of this conference is huge and from all over the world. So this highlights the key challenge that the European space sector is facing. As Commissioner for the internal market, we know all the importance you give to foster a strong and innovative space industry. You are the man of orchestra, all the sectors that interpenetrate space, industry, digital and defence, taking into consideration all the initiatives put forward by the European Commission under your aegis. I'm sure that we will all be pleased to listen to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, all dear ministers, dear representatives from member states, Madame la Vice-Premier Ministre, ma chère Sophie, honorable members of the Parliament, cher Christian, ladies and gentlemen, first, and dear friends, I'm extremely happy here again to be able to open this morning this European Space Conference more or less live. And that's very good to see at least all of you in this room this morning. I will start with something that you know. Christian, Europe is a space power. And we all know that, and we are working for this to continue, of course. It has the necessary expertise, industrial capacity, of course, startups, assets, to wait on the global stage. But, of course, we know also that there is no time for complacency. The space sector is under massive transformation. On one side, the booming of private operators changes the business model of space, combining both small and large industry, space and digital ecosystems. And this is, of course, a major opportunity for all of us in Europe. And we need to unleash this opportunity. But on the other side, space is also exponentially a contested domain. And the recent Russian anti-missile test made it clear. Space is a strategic place where big powers are now competing. And we cannot be naive anymore. Europe must defend its interest and freedom to operate in space. And this brings a new strategic dimension to space that must become a strong driver for all our plans. Against this background, I would like to present this morning to you my 4 priorities for this year ahead. My first priority will be, of course, to consolidate our existing assets while developing them to face all the upcoming challenges, and we'll come back on this later on. Galileo, of course, is the best satellite navigation system in the world. However, our competitors are moving fast, and we all know that. Following my decision to accelerate the deployment of the second generation, we have now prepared all the necessary contractual conditions, and we are expecting to receive the first second generation satellite in 2024 for a launch in 2024. And with this new generation, Galileo will operate real technological breakthrough, such as digitally configurable antennas, inter-satellite links, new atomic clock technologies, use, of course, of full electric propulsion systems, to say a few of these new capacities. Copernicus is, of course, the best Earth observation system in the world. However, it is also facing a growing and very acute competition from private actors. But while keeping the fundamentals of Copernicus, we need to, let's say, rethink how it works and how it can better answer evolving needs towards more green, more digital, more resilient, more reactivity. In a few weeks, I will have the opportunity to present this modernization strategy, taking into account all these aspects. One word on launchers, of course. Europe can rely on its historic launchers with, of course, Ariane and Vega, which are the result of decades of investment and accumulated know-how. But here again, against a strong competition, we must develop a fully fledged European launcher strategy that will ensure its needs, its global position, and its autonomy for the next 20 to 30 years. We will soon launch, in this perspective, the European Space Launcher Alliance to define a technological roadmap and an holistic European approach to launchers, combining the need to consolidate our existing and, of course, indispensable launchers, while setting also at the same time the right framework for small and micro launchers to emerge. My second priority is to prepare and project Europe into the realities of tomorrow, anticipate the future challenges, and of course avoid potential strategic dependencies. First, I consider Europe should equip itself with a space-based connectivity infrastructure. As promised last year, I will present to Member States and to the European Parliament a legislative proposal to establish this initiative in the coming weeks. With this infrastructure, we will have four pillars, let's say, for ambition. First, we will provide high-speed internet access for all Europeans, putting an end to dead zones. Second, we will ensure redundancy with terrestrial infrastructure and thus allow Europe to remain connected whatever happens on terrestrial networks. It is imperative for our resilience. Third, we will set up an ultra-secure infrastructure thanks to quantum encryption. The other regions of the world are initiating it. Europe cannot lag behind on this technological dimension, which will condition the cybersecurity of tomorrow. And finally, it is a true geopolitical infrastructure. It will reduce European dependencies on non-European commercial initiatives under development. It will also provide Africa with the necessary connectivity, offering a European alternative, a first global gateway initiative. We have tested its feasibility through studies over the past year with industries as well as with startups. Details of its architecture will be presented in a few weeks. However, there are already points of importance, and I would like to mention 5 of these. First, it should be a multi-orbital, allowing to benefit and use all the assets we have today in Europe. Second, it should have a governmental and commercial service. Third, it should integrate from the start the military usage and needs. Using LEO satellites, it opens up several fields of interest in this perspective. Fourth, being a strategic constellation, we will make sure that the right governance and eligibility conditions are put in place to avoid any dependencies on third countries. And fifth, we will rely on the whole expertise of our space industries, large corporations and startups, and we will make sure that this initiative is run on a new space spirit. Once presented, I count on the Member States and the European Parliament to move fast, so we can hopefully conclude in a year's time the negotiation and have the first services deployed already by 2024. I know it is ambitious, but I know that it is also feasible. The second critical initiative I will launch in the coming weeks is to define the European strategy for space traffic management. An increasingly congested space is threatening the viability and security of space infrastructure and operation. We all know that. More than 1 million debris are today orbiting around Earth, and it is constantly increasing. It is expected that in the next year to come, more than 30,000 additional satellites will be launched. And the Union, of course, already has surveillance and tracking systems and capabilities, thanks to the capabilities made available by the Member States with the EU SST consortium. We monitor already, by the way, more than 240 satellites in real time, including, of course, Galileo and Copernicus, in order to protect them against risk and collisions. But faced with the challenges of the multiplication of threats, we must go further and define a holistic STEM approach, including through the strengthening of our existing capabilities. We must reduce also our dependencies on the American systems while ensuring, of course, interoperability. It is also a geostrategic question to be able to monitor autonomously space and to enhance our collective situation, awareness of threats of the European and national space assets. My third priority will be on space innovation. It is absolutely imperative for Europe to develop a real strategy to spur innovation in space. I want then to mobilize all the instruments at our disposal in this spirit. First, through the first ever space partnership, we will bring together the space industry, research institute, academia, public authorities with one aim: design, through technological roadmaps, long-term plan and coordinate investment in space innovation. Second, I am determined to use public procurement in a strategic way, including in our large space project. This will be the case, of course, for Copernicus, new generation satellites, or for the connectivity project. Public procurement lower commercial risk and also provide long-term prospect to stabilize the business of small companies, but not only. It also has a very positive effect on private investors. And in the same vein, we will also use public procurement to test and de-risk new solutions. This is precisely the purpose of our in-orbit validation demonstration initiative for a new entrant, spaceflight heritage in real condition is definitely a must. Without there is no commercial opportunity. So drawing the lessons from our past experience and together with ESA, Josep, we will then ensure speed and annuality of the program to make it more efficient. And in a few weeks, we will publish a new call to collect potential candidates, payloads or experiments that need in-orbit demonstrations and validation services. We will also use public procurement to stimulate the launcher ecosystem, and in particular for mini and micro launchers, by giving them launch services opportunities. This is a flight ticket initiative. And as of 2023, new launch systems will have the possibility to provide launch services for certain institutional launches, starting with in-orbit demonstration and validation. Third, access to finance is absolutely critical for innovation. We will increase our cooperation with the EIC building on the positive experience of last year, and additionally, today, we are signing the start of the Cassini Space Investment Fund with the EIF. It will deploy an investment capabilities of at least €1 billion in support of space startups that want to scale up. Europe is not short, of course, of this very, let's say, vibrant ecosystem of startups which have disruptive ideas and technologies, but many of our startups cannot get sizable equity investment in the EU once they need to scale up. So they have no choice but to turn to non-EU investors, and of course we need to answer to this issue, and this is, if we don't act, a major loss for Europe, and this is why the Cassini fund will be definitely a game changer. It will be complemented by a debt instrument through the EIB to make sure that new space companies get access to loans, in particular when they are not accessible for traditional sources. My last priority, the fourth one, is about the defense dimension of our space policy. 2 weeks ago, I participated in a discussion with all our EU defense ministers on space, together with the High Representative, my friend Josep Borrell. It was in Brest. We discussed about the strategic nature of space and the need to have a plan on how to enhance our resilience in and from space. Beyond the traditional defense domain, we collectively face new threats. And especially in this so-called now new strategic and contested area. It is, of course, the case for the cyberspace, we know that, but also, of course, in space, which is absolutely becoming more and more crucial for our security. So, this is why we are proposing, as part of the strategic compass, which is under discussion now, which will be finalized in the next few weeks, the vehicle of our collective ambition in defense cooperation. So we propose to put forward by next year a space and defense strategy. We should first expand the defense dimension in existing and upcoming EU infrastructure. Galileo, of course, is a clear demonstration that a common infrastructure under civilian control can meet defense and security needs, and that we can set up the right governance based on trust. And it works. We should then replicate this approach for the evolution of Copernicus, but also in the new Secure Connectivity Initiative, and of course in our new STM strategy. Second, we should develop new infrastructures as dual use by design, integrating the defense need from the outset. For instance, the secured connectivity infrastructure could be equipped with a payload on the LEO satellites, allowing to monitor space from space. Third, we should reduce our technological dependencies and reinforce the resilience of our supply chains in critical sectors for space such as quantum, artificial intelligence, and of course chips. This is absolutely critical to ensure the integrity, the security, and the operations of our space infrastructure. And finally, we should set up new governance for our space program to best reply on the threats. In addition to the established crisis management protocol, we could better organize joint situational awareness with the participation of course, all actors. Our aim on the mid to long run could be to establish, let's say, a true European Space Command. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we have, of course, a full program ahead of us to enhance our space ambition. 2022 will be extremely important year for space, a year during which we consolidate our existing assets, Galileo, Copernicus, and of course the launchers, while of course also preparing and projecting ourselves for the next decade. A year with new initiatives where we go from words to concrete implementation, space connectivity, STM, and of course new space. And a year finally where we will concretely and fully integrate the defense and strategic dimension of space in our approach and policies. The Commission is working with, of course, determination to deliver it. I count on all of you, Member States, Members of the Parliament, industry, of course my friend from ESA, and the national agencies, which make also fantastic work together to make sure that we can progress together fast. We all know that in our industry, more than ever, time is of the essence. And of course, you know also that you can definitely count on me to make sure that we will win together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Breton, for your determination. Madame Wilmès, thank you. Mr. Breton, I'm sure your introductory speech will pave the way for the interesting debate during those 2 days of conference. As the Commissioner said, we need the access of finance to boost the competitiveness of the space industry. We need strong link between the public entities, the banks, and the venture capitals. During those 2 days, in addition to the major industrial actors of the European space sector, we will also have several key young entrepreneurs and startups with us. I'm pleased now to welcome Chris Peters, the Vice President of the European Investment Bank. Please, I'm pleased to give you the floor, Mr. Peters.
Dear Excellencies, dear Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good morning. It's a great pleasure for me to be back in Brussels and see you all again at this most important conference on the European space sector. And I would like to thank the European Space Conference for inviting me, of course. And it's not a moment too soon, I must say. Space is in the news like never before, as we are entering, and that you know very well, the new space era. Satellite constellations in low Earth orbit link up almost every aspect of our daily life, from mobile phones to the internet and television to transport network, and even banking systems use the space for their systems. In brief, our European model of living depends increasingly on our ability to control space applications and set European standards and regulations like the Commissioner has said. The space economy is estimated, you know that, to account for over 10% of the European economy, and it's expected to double in revenues over the next decade. It is also seen as an increasingly strategic sector, especially when it comes to defense, security, climate and connectivity. This unpredicted speed of development in space sector requires us to accelerate our support for space-related innovations, research and businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, only then Europe can become a leader in space entrepreneurship. In this effort, we, the European Investment Bank and European Investment Fund, are working closely with many partners, also here in the room, as by ESA and European Commission, of course, and in particular also DG DEFIS. Together we are all committed to meet the market needs of our companies as well as the public sector and create the right financial environment, of course, to really keep up with our global competitors. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me say some words about the private sector, you. Without a doubt, in an era of geostrategic competition, key technologies, including space, are creating new sources of power and security in international affairs. Certainly today, very important. For a long time, these core technologies with implications for defense and security have been developed and financed foremost by governments. However, and you know that very well today, the development of space, quantum or AI that impact defense and security in the 21st century are increasingly or even mainly driven by the private sector. That is why improving Europe's competitiveness and supporting new business creation are so important for achieving strategic autonomy. It ensures that Europe has the capacities and capabilities it needs to defend its values. Europe has historically always been at the forefront of publicly funded space activities, investing in space infrastructure such as the Copernicus, already said by the Commissioner, and Galileo satellites programs. And while Europe will boost economic and academic and scientific excellence, we are at risk of failing behind in the next wave of space innovation. We need to stimulate more private investment in the new space sector, especially, ladies and gentlemen, for innovative small and medium-sized enterprises. Combining with this Europe's leading role in the sustainable and green transition, it might actually be the sweet spot of pushing the space agenda even further. Now, what can we do as EIB and the European Investment Fund? Unfortunately, we know from our EIB study on the future of European space sector launched in 2019 and a recent study undertaken together with DG DEFIS and USPA that European space entrepreneurs feel there is a lack of private financing sources. They therefore tend to keep an eye on private capital outside of the EU, especially, ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America. In this context, European public financial instruments play an essential role in unlocking private capital for the space sector. 40% of the European companies seek public funding, which serves as a seal of approval in the market, as a precondition for further private investment. This is an effort to compete with the expansion of the private sector in the space domain, particularly in the United States. The EIB Group, and you know that, as the European investment arm, offers an integrated package of financing and, ladies and gentlemen, advisory support for the European space ecosystem. For example, we are very successful in venture debt for starting ups, as well as senior investment loans to larger companies. We finance upstream assets such as launchers and satellites and downstream commercial applications. If mandated to do so, the bank would aim at scaling up the investments necessary for European companies to go and to grow in Europe and keep up in the new space race. We can provide the support that established leaders and innovative startups need to develop new space solutions in all market segments, ranging from transport automatization to precise agriculture, geomatics and rescue services. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, to bring finance closer to space and space closer to finance, we also initiate the Space Finance Lab. The aim is to facilitate the development of innovative funding instruments for the European space industry by initiating the discussions and connecting companies, financiers and policy makers. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, let me provide you with some concluding remarks. What is clear is that we are in the midst of an age of disruption for the space sector, a disruption that also affects financing and cuts across many other sectors of the economy. To really make Europe a leading continent for innovative space solutions, for a better planet and improving our lives here on Earth, we need a persistent and substantial investment policy. To match global competitors, Europe has to stand together, closer than ever. We will need to pool our resources and complement one another wherever possible. This reception is an opportunity that we can't afford to miss. And I can tell you that the European Investment Bank and the European Investment Fund shall take some initiatives. The Commissioner already mentioned Cassini, that will be signed later this morning. But also other initiatives shall be decided in the bank, because I am convinced that we can and must play an important role in financing your activity. Financing
Mr. Peters. I'm pleased now to welcome Joseph Ashbacher, the General Director of the European Space Agency, and I give now the rest of the session to my colleague George. May I also ask to the other panelists to join us? Thank you.
Working. So, dear ministers, okay. So let's try again. So, dear ministers, Commissioner Breton, European leaders in space, dear Alex, our astronaut, ladies and gentlemen. Today's conference theme is shedding light on two important words, vision and action. But allow me to merge them into one, ambition. Ambition is what drove humans to achieve the important, the impossible, the unimaginable. Ambition is what drove Europeans to explore and cross the Atlantic to new lands, and later to send first radio signals across the ocean. And ambition is what pushed Europeans to discover the antibiotic and subsequently saved millions of lives. And this is what made Europeans send the first spacecraft to a comet and a lander to its surface in a spectacular finale which was applauded by the whole world. The youth of our planet is brimming with ambition, but they want tangible action, as we recently saw on the streets of Glasgow at COP26. We need to respond to the world's biggest challenges: climate emergency, health and social crisis, geopolitical instability, increasingly fierce global competition between the United States and China, and a private sector entering space with unprecedented speed and energy. Our startups and our European space industry are waiting for our signal, here and now. So what is Europe doing? Europe has some of the best talents with some of the most brilliant ideas. But Europe has weaknesses. Europe is dispersed, access to funding is too limited, and Europe is too slow. To address these head-on, ESA has launched Agenda 2025 in March last year. It shall unite the key European actors in space, ESA and the European Commission. It shall engage the private sector, and it shall take action to ease access to funding. But Agenda 2025 will also speed up processes and transform ESA to be well prepared for the challenges of the next decade. Agenda 25 is a vision and a call for action. As I have expressed many times, I am really fully committed to working hand in hand with the European Union and the European Commission. Over the past 3 decades, ESA and the European Union have proven that they can launch big programs together. Galileo would not exist without the European Commission. It would also not exist without ESA. And the same applies to Copernicus. We need to join forces. Let me quote from the joint letter which Commissioner Thierry Breton, and myself sent to all European ministers last year. Only by collectively joining our forces, the EU, ESA and Member States, we will be able to develop an ambitious space agenda for Europe. A few months later, we sealed a strong agreement between the Commission and ESA by signing the Financial Framework Partnership Agreement. Negotiations were done in record time with a deep spirit of trust. I want to thank the teams of Commissioner Thierry Breton and Timo Pesonen for this very, very strong support. Throughout the summer 2021, ESA convened an advisory group of high-level personalities to help us transforming vision into action. The group proposed 3 accelerators and 2 inspirators. The ministers of ESA's member states adopted the Matosinhos Manifesto last November and gave ESA a clear mandate to further develop these concepts, their governance and funding schemes in close cooperation with the European Union and other partners. The first 2 accelerators, Space for a Green Future and Rapid and Resilient Crisis Response, will put satellites and data infrastructures into place using key technologies like artificial intelligence, cognitive cloud computing, quantum gravimetry, high-performance computing, and in-orbit communication to address the biggest challenges to humankind, climate change. All nations in Europe have declared carbon neutrality by mid of this century as the most urgent action. We will develop a digital twin of our planet and create climate information factories throughout small and large industries in Europe to respond to these challenges. The second accelerator on rapid and resilient crisis response will tightly link with the Secure Connectivity Initiative just proposed by Commissioner Thierry Breton. But this is not enough. The number of satellites launched is growing exponentially, dramatically increasing the risk of collisions. We can't leave our astronauts or our satellite infrastructure at risk. This is the third accelerator to contribute to safeguarding and protecting European assets from space debris and from space weather interferences. Through these accelerators, we will support citizens, decision makers, civil protection agencies, firefighters and rescue forces on the ground. It will also help unite Europe around programs tackling the key challenges ahead of us while ensuring that users are in the focus. You will notice that these topics appear all throughout this conference, which proves that they are timely and urgent. Finally, we cannot talk about European space ambition without talking about inspiration. Our quest will always be driven by a common dream to better understand our world, to explore and to discover. We have to aim high, to inspire young talents and motivate them. We need a forward-looking, independent, sovereign Europe. We have identified 2 inspirators, one to explore whether there is life out there through a sample return mission to an icy moon of the outer solar system, and one on human exploration. On the latter one, human exploration, we need political vision and leadership. The Space Summit, in less than a month, will be the next opportunity. The summit will not make funding decisions on human exploration. Still, I do hope to get a strong signal for ESA to come back to our decision makers with clear proposals. In any case, we have many important topics on the agenda on the 16th of February. Some tabled by the European Commission on space traffic management and secure connectivity, as just elaborated by Commissioner Breton, and some by ESA on accelerators and inspirators. They are all complementary. Europe will have the chance to create a political milestone that can make history for Europe in space. The Space Summit will also provide a strong momentum for the ESA Council at ministerial level in November, where I will present a coherent set of attractive programme proposals for Europe. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by stating that our plans are challenging, Our accelerators and inspirators will incite the younger generation, they will push innovation, and they will catapult our European industry into the worldwide race we cannot be absent from. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to present our plans and to offer the full cooperation of ESA in achieving common goals together. Let's make space a multiplier of a visionary, committed and optimistic Europe. Together, let us embark on a common journey for a better life on Earth. Thank you.